This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome. You've heard and read the spin the media and the politicians have put on the issues of the day. To get the correct spin on what's going on in North Carolina, let's introduce you to our panel of experts. They include Peg O'Connell, who is a lobbyist and a very active politician and analyst, John Hood from the John Locke Foundation, Chris Fitzsimon from NC Policy Watch, and former Nash County Representative Gene Arnold. I want to begin by thanking Brad Crone for sitting in for us last week. I had all kinds of good comments about his moderating. Maybe I can take more weeks off. The Supreme Court essentially overturned North Carolina's marriage law. We want to discuss the ruling and the fallout. As elections draw near, the confusion hanging over them grows darker, and we're going to talk about the laws that govern them. And we're also going to talk about political debates and the fact that 1 in 8 students fail to read at a third grade level by the end of the third grade. And as always, we're going to ask the panel to tell us something we don't know. So let's begin. In 2012, voters of North Carolina passed a constitutional amendment stating that marriage was between one man and one woman. Several states passed similar amendments, and at least 5 of those amendments were challenged in court. The U.S. district courts have unanimously banned them. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected appeals from those states, effectively saying the amendments are unconstitutional and gay marriages are legal. Before the ceremonies can be conducted, however, a federal judge lifted the stay, but then has to figure out how to rule that they can be conducted. He gave lawyers 10 days to submit their suggestions. Gene, it appears the same-sex marriages are going to become the law of the land in North Carolina. The Supreme Court action was unusual in that they never heard the case. Comment on that and what impact it might have in North Carolina.
Well, Tom, I've been happily married to the same woman for 57 years.
We're all surprised at that, by the way.
And I don't have a great deal of interest in that issue. And what I firmly believe is that others and most people in North Carolina hold that same opinion. I think that there's a lack of interest in what's going on that issue. I also believe that Berger, when he hires, and I think he will, outside attorneys, that they will be unable to even get standing. And I think within a year you'll see this amendment applied across the state.
But it was kind of unusual, wasn't it, Chris? I mean, the Supreme Court, what they did in essence was to kind of leave the door open a little bit on this issue.
Well,
and why didn't they hear the case and rule on it?
Well, they do this all the time when they agree with the ruling of a lower court or they can't decide among themselves. They let the lower court ruling stand, which means that's the law of the land. The confusing thing is all the circuit courts that have ruled, every single federal court, by the way, that in the last 2 years that has taken up this issue has ruled against the marriage ban, has ruled for marriage equality. So now by the Supreme Court's action this past week, 30, when everybody's fully sort of that's covered by these circuits have acted, 30 of the 50 states, right, gay marriage will be legal. The other 20 states, that those cases simply haven't gotten to the Supreme Court. Well, they hadn't gotten to the Supreme Court yet. I do think and there might be that this district.
So why didn't they hear the case and decide it once and
because they agree with the decisions that have been made, is my point. And what they're going to do is let the circuit courts rule. If a circuit court comes and says we uphold a ban, then I think they will take the case.
Yeah, John, Tammy Fitzgerald with the organization North Carolina Values Coalition says, wait a minute, every state ought to have the right to decide and recognize marriages in whichever way they want to. This almost seems to indicate we're going to see some states' rights arguments and lawsuits resulting from this. You think that'll happen?
No, that's already what the cases are about, is whether states can do this or not, and the federal courts are not being friendly to that argument.
But under the 10th Amendment, if the states don't specifically give the federal government that authority.
Well, yeah, but you're talking. I'm sorry. I mean, you're talking about constitutional issues and equal protection and rights to associate. So the Constitution always trumps states' rights as far as the basic freedoms in our society.
Well, the 10th Amendment gives the authority to the states.
The 10th Amendment has to do with powers that are not delegated to the federal government, reserved for the states or the people. And the 9th Amendment argues that just because the federal Constitution doesn't mention a particular right doesn't mean that right is non-existent. You see. So there's all sorts of arguments to be made. The point is, whatever you think about marriage among same-sex couples or whatever, It's very obvious where the federal courts are going. I don't see any likely prospect that is going to go the other way. So what I would urge conservatives and moderates and liberals, anybody who's concerned about the future of marriage and the sanctity of marriage, to now focus their efforts on the real threats to the sanctity of marriage, which would be things like divorce, couples never getting married and bringing up kids outside of wedlock, making sure there are counseling for couples that are having trouble. I mean, actual threats to marriage would be an appropriate subject to focus on.
That raises
I want to say,
though.
I agree with John Hood.
Of course you do.
Everything he just said.
Can I write this down?
Yes, write this down. Somebody notarize it.
Okay, so dovetailing into what he had to say, House Speaker Tillis and President Pro Tem Berger say they're going to appeal this case. On what grounds?
Well, you know, I think way smarter lawyers than me are scratching their head over that exact question right now. I don't know what Gene mentioned, what standing they might have. The only thing they may be able to do is to make an emergency petition to the Supreme Court for a stay of.
That seems to be pretty popular.
I know the Supreme Court is going to be very busy over the next few weeks trying to sort all this thing out. Again, I am not a constitutional law expert, but I don't know what ground upon which they think they could challenge.
Well, and I think it's a legitimate question to ask, why would they be wasting taxpayers' money? They're talking about hiring an outside counsel in a case that nobody thinks they have a chance to win. We are part of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. They ruled on a Virginia law that's very similar to ours. I don't think there's any question. I think we'll see in next week that the federal district court will will throw out the North Carolina's marriage ban because of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. There's really not a lot to appeal, and I think it'll be outrageous if they waste our money chasing that rabbit.
So what y'all are saying is the people that are opposing it get over it?
Well, I think Tom Tillis said it himself. This will be gone in 10 years. It's just gone 8 years sooner than he thought.
There are still some things that could be legitimately argued about this. For example, should people have the right, if they are wedding photographers or ministers or anybody else, at what point do people have to follow what the state says? Obviously, you can't prohibit same-sex marriage in this situation, but are you compelled to participate in
I'm married to a Methodist pastor, and I can tell you that they are forbidden to marry or have unions of same-sex
That is
couples.
a liberty interest that also deserves to be protected, and that's the kind of issue we might see debated in the future.
But that's a religious question and not an issue of state governments or the power of the state. And those are two totally different things.
I got it, but it's going to be part of the fallout.
As there have been in other states, will there be legal attempts to punish people or force people?
You know, no Catholic can go into a Baptist minister and say, you must marry me. I mean, that doesn't
because
happen.
they're already applying that to people who provide services in a religious context but are not ministers. I'm a little worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, every year we're proud to join our friend Rufus Edmiston for the annual fundraiser for Extra Special Super Kids. For 20 years, this organization has supported and mentored talented but financially challenged children to help them succeed in personal and academic endeavors. This year's event is going to be held at the State Farmers Market. October 30th, your $50 ticket provides wonderful food, drinks, a big silent auction, and great company. Whether you can attend or not, this one event is worth supporting. Go to www.specialsuperkids.com or call 829-1988 for more information. We hope to see you there. When we come back, voting confusion.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
My name is Bernie Teal. Sunburst Farms has been in my family for over 35 years. Last year I had to do something I'd never done before. Destroy 10 acres of good squash. I wasn't able to find enough workers. The opportunity is there. American families are demanding locally grown vegetables, and I want to provide that to them. So please tell Congress that we need immigration reform now.
I sit in my exam rooms day after day with patients all day long. We get to know our patients. Sometimes I can't sleep at night if I don't think I've done the very best thing for my patient. And I think over time a patient learns that that's what you're doing for them, and they feel a responsibility to try to do the best they can, to follow their diet, to take their medicines, to exercise. It should be up to us to make the decision for our patients and not some bureaucrat, hired gun, 2,000 or 3,000 miles away in a little cubicle somewhere. I think the job is ours. We're the ones who know the patients. We know the medicine. We know what's best for them, and we think it should be our decision.
North Carolina family physicians support Medicaid reform that keeps healthcare decisions right where they belong, between the patient and their trusted family physician.
OurNCHealthcare.com. We now return to NC Spin.
In 4 weeks, we go to vote. We know the candidates. In fact, the U.S. Senate candidates held 2 debates this week. But we don't know the laws that they're going to be governed under. Well, we might know because it's still confusing. The Supreme Court ruled late last week that they put a stay on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that the 2013 law disallowing same-day voting and provisional ballots cast outside a voter's proper precinct is now negated. So same-day voting is a thing of the past, so is provisional ballots. The appeal has ended. The Supreme Court decided, but Peg, the courts say they were trying to eliminate confusion about all this, but it seems like they just created more of it, didn't they?
Well, yes, and I have to tell you, this episode of NC Spin feels like a law school exam, with first the marriage ban and now the election laws. The candidate for Secretary of State in the state of Ohio said confusion is the new voter suppression. And I think that's absolutely true. When the law is moving so fast and furious, and I think there was intent when this law was passed originally to change long-held voting practices. It confuses people. They don't know where they're supposed to go or what they're supposed to do. So they have to be proactive. But, you know, our franchise is the most important thing that we can do as Americans and as North Carolinians and as residents of Wake County or citizens of Raleigh. So, you know, as confusing and as smoke-screened as it is, we got to figure it out.
I fear that our détente is now over. We had one segment of comedy.
Agreement.
The 2 issues involved, which were not provisional ballots, which still exist in certain situations, but out of precinct voting,
right,
showing up at any precinct and casting a ballot, and then they have to go and check the ones you could legitimately vote for and the ones not. That's a very new thing. North Carolina did not historically do that, and then they changed it, and now they've changed it back. And same-day voter registration was not historical. We didn't do that for a long period of time.
But it's been a practice for two elections, two presidential elections. Yeah,
okay,
that's a long time in the history of North Carolina.
It is hardly changing long-established voting traditions. The Supreme Court, I think, ruled, and they've ruled by a 7-2 margin, not the merits of the case. It's important people to understand that's still going to be tried next year.
Exactly.
What they were saying is it's simply too close to the election to suddenly change the laws again, which is what the plaintiffs were trying to do. They were trying to change the rules right before the election. And I think that was, the Fourth Circuit's decision was kind of a stretch, and it wasn't going to last, and it didn't last more than a few days.
Gene, the big question here is Peg right? Is all this going to confuse, is all this confusion actually going to act to suppress voter turnout?
I don't think it will have one effect on suppressing anyone going out and voting. I think that the voting today by block has been so organized that those who are on one side or the other are going to get their people to the polls. And once again, even in North Carolina, that 11 to 14% that read the issues, study the issues, and then vote as to what they think the issues are supported by their candidate will make the difference.
All right, so Chris, the 2013 election laws that the legislature passed are in full effect just as they passed them. The only thing that hasn't gone into effect is voter ID, which doesn't take place until 2016, and a couple of other...
Right, but remember, as John pointed out, next summer there'll be a full trial on several aspects of the law, which could change everything or not change anything, or change part of this again for the 2016 election. So we're going to be talking about this for a long time.
All right, let's move on to the debates. We had some debates this week. We had the 2nd District congressional debate between Clay Aiken and Renee Elmas. Got a bit testy this week, the way the reporters like to report it. You live in the 2nd District. What's your reaction to that debate?
Who's running against Elmers again? I thought it was very entertaining, but that's all it was. I don't think Mr. Aiken has a chance to win, and I think that you know, he should go back to making records and let this girl go back, Miss Elmers, and run her district.
Any other comments on it?
Well, how do you comment? How do you follow that?
Well, it was an entertaining remark.
Particular pronouns that you use. But what I would say is that Clay Aiken actually has a facility for language. He knows something about the issues. He's certainly comfortable in front of a camera. He's just running in the wrong race in the wrong district. If he wants to go into a political career, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. We have had entertainers. They were very successable politicians.
Yeah, for president.
But you might want to go and run in a more appropriate race in a district that is competitive, and that's
Well, maybe this is just a warm-up.
But that being said, and this is a Republican district drawn by the Republican General Assembly to be a Republican district. That being said, I think Clay Aiken is going to come closer than we would have thought as we sat here 6 months ago when he first announced he was going to run.
All right, so let's move on to the Senate debate. This was a very interesting situation. The tables were turned a little bit in that in the first race. In the first debate, Tom Tillis was more the challenger, a little condescending perhaps, took the aggressive position a little bit more. Kay Hagan did a little bit more of that this time, didn't she, John?
Yes, I think she was a bit more aggressive in the second debate than the first. She is not a natural speaker. She's not a really good debater in classic sense. Tillis is a little more comfortable. But I actually think she did a better job in the second debate than the first debate.
Did anybody win on points here?
Well,
I
think
it
was a tie. I think Hagan might have been slightly better in this one. Tillis slightly better in the first one. But there has not been a poll that has showed Tom Tillis tied or ahead in months. He needed to win. Even if everybody agrees that it was a tie, then Hagan won.
In
this
politics,
wasn't a real debate, though. It was a shouting match.
Okay, and my son said, "Hey, we'd have been better off if they just put their commercials up on the screen."
But here's what's interesting about it is that in September, when I think Tillis did have a better performance in the first debate, but September was a pretty good month for Hagan. October is now developing a little bit more momentum for Tillis, even though he didn't do as clearly a good
you've
job
run
in the
elections
debate.
before. In the event of a tie, the incumbent always wins.
Yes. Tillis has to do something to distinguish himself as being different from Hagan. Tillis is hurting, in my opinion. I know the polls say otherwise. When the Tea Party goes to the ballot and the other candidate, other party, takes votes away from Tillis, he's got a problem.
All right. We'll be talking about it some more in weeks to come. 1 in 3rd graders can't read on grade level. That's the next subject after these messages.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Hi, I'm Linda Loveland. I want the best for my kids. Feeding them foods they like within my budget is a priority. But what do we really know about these foods? North Carolina farmers and food experts give you a website to find it all. FeedTheDialogueNC.com, a place where moms like you and me can learn more about the foods we eat and the farmers that feed us. Check it out. Add your input and help feed the dialogue. Let's talk food at FeedTheDialogueNC.com.
The best part about being a member of a Touchstone Energy Cooperative is that it's your Touchstone Energy Cooperative. Learn more about the power of your co-op membership at TogetherWeSave.com.
North Carolina's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, looking out for you.
Where do you go when you need to know? ANC makes it easy for you to get the information you need to make well-informed public policy decisions. Our members are industry leaders who are ready to share their industry-specific insights with you. Want to hear both sides of the story? ANC members can tell you. Just use the ANC member directory as your guide or call us directly. ANC members have the knowledge, expertise, and perspective you need to create public policies that are good for North Carolina. We are ready for your call.
We now return to NC Spin.
Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger is fond of saying that in the first 3 grades, students learn to read. Thereafter, they read to learn, and that too many don't learn to read. The Read to Achieve law requires 3rd grade students read at grade level or else not be promoted. We know that almost 13%, or 1 in 8 students, could not pass the state requirements and are either going to have to repeat 3rd grade or get special attention in special 4th grade transition classes. Chris, you remember last year there was a lot of outcry that prompted the legislature to weaken this law a little bit, but even under the weakened law, It's troubling. What does it say about our education system that 1 in 8 can't read at 3rd grade level?
Well, it says a lot of things, including that a lot of kids come to school way behind other kids. It says that some of our students aren't doing as well and teachers aren't doing as well. The issue isn't, nobody disagrees that kids need to learn at the end of the 3rd grade. The issue is, what do you do when they can't? And there's a lot of research that shows you put them in summer school, you do all that, but the more you retain them, there's a big risk in damaging those kids. I think that it's you have to give them extra attention in the 4th grade.
Phil Berger said, Gene, that, okay, there's 13% that didn't pass the grade level, but there's 79% roughly that did. We ought to look at the half full glass instead of the half empty glass. You agree with him?
Of course not. What happened to every child left behind, or no child left behind, whichever way he wants to put it? The secret is, and he learned this when he went down to Florida and saw the Jeb Bush system, put reading teachers in the first 3 grades. That's the only way, and give them more of those. The only way you're going to break the cycle.
All right. So years ago, Peg, we were distressed about the dropout rate, graduation rate. We really honed in on it, focused in on it, and got it up to around 80%. Is that what it's going to take here?
Well, I think so. I mean, whenever you have a huge problem like this, flipping one switch isn't going to fix it. You have to put resources and talent and your own political gravitas behind it. I mean, it moved infant mortality, it's helped the dropout rate, and if we really want to change what's happening in the 3rd grade, then we got to do something about it. We got to put some money and some people in there.
All right, after these messages, we're going to ask the panel to tell us something we don't know.
NC Spin is brought to you in part by the North Carolina Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau and Agriculture. We keep North Carolina growing.
Does your North Carolina business or organization have a story to tell? I'm Richard Campbell, and at Carolina Broadcasting and Publishing, we help tell stories that connect you to the people who will respond. We take the time to understand our clients' needs and what makes them unique. We craft their stories through the efficient use of words, images, and videos that resonate with their desired audience. We also know that a good story is incomplete without a call to action. On video, on air, online, and in print, from concept to final production, no one can help tell your story more effectively or affordably than we can. For special introductory offers, visit carolinabroadcasting.com or call 919-832-1416. Again, that's carolinabroadcasting.com. Let us help tell your story today.
I think family physicians are very conscious of cost. They want to order the right test at the right time for the right patient. If you have someone else who is interjected in that decision making, who has profit as their bottom line motive, I think it changes the whole conversation. You lose trust. I think the trust is with the family physician who has the patient's best interest at heart. If the person making those recommendations and decisions about testing and procedures and going to see a particular specialist, if that is being made with profit in mind, there's no way a patient can have trust in that.
North Carolina's family physicians support Medicaid reform that keeps healthcare decisions right where they belong, between the patient and their trusted family physician.
OurNCHealthcare.com.
Are you concerned for the future of rural North Carolina? Then join the North Carolina Rural Center and other business and government leaders for the 2014 NC Rural Assembly on October 30th at the Doubletree in Raleigh. Register online at ncruralcenter.org.
All right, we've had great conversation, not much time left. John Hood, tell us something we don't know.
The Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, the national group, has listed a bunch of the legislative races around the country that they think they have the best chance of flipping from the Republicans to the Democrats. 6 of those seats are in North Carolina, 3 in the House, 3 in the Senate, half of them in Wake County.
Hey.
Under this new confusing voting rights, if you file for an absentee ballot and want to vote that way, you now have to have 2 witnesses or have it notarized.
Teacher shortage has reached epidemic proportion and is exploding.
Wow.
The new public-private partnership in the Department of Commerce started off to a rocky start. The law says they have to be transparent and disclose their donors. The head of the partnership's board this past week refused to say who was given the partnership money. We have to wait till they file their tax forms, the 990, which nobody thought was the case.
Well, you've heard our spin on the issues of the day. To stay informed all during the week, give your feedback, and read our weekly column, be sure to visit our website, ncspin.com, or catch NC Spin on Facebook. And we hope you'll join us next week when we'll take on more issues of interest to the people of North Carolina. Until then, stay informed. Watch out for the spin.
Join us next week and get the spin on issues facing our state.